hard to get documentation. I myself was an immigrant in Pakistan for 9 years. We didn't have any documentation. We couldn't go to the public schools because we were not from Pakistan, and then we couldn't go to private schools because we couldn't afford it. So the situation is, you know, it's really hard for Afghans to have documents and to have to be part of the society just because of being an immigrant.
So are there any questions from the audience? Gerne.
Also ich denke, noch ein Problem zum Beispiel im Iran ist eine sehr starke chauvinistische Umgehen mit den Afghanen. Und es gibt auch also gegen diese Afghanen oder gegen Ausländer irgendwie eine Kultur, und das muss auch kritisiert werden. Dieser Film hat einen anderen Teil vom Iran gezeigt. Also die Organisationen sind NGO-Organisationen und helfen sehr viel Flüchtlinge aus Afghanistan im Iran. Und das ist sehr gut, wenn wir über afghanische Flüchtlinge reden. Ich denke, in Deutschland oder weltweit auch, sie sollen Möglichkeit bekommen, bleiben. In Deutschland jetzt ist die Rede, Afghanistan ist ein sicheres Land, aber ich denke nicht. Und sehr viele Menschen aus dem Iran, Afghanen, geflüchtet sind hier. Und wenn diese Afghanen abgeschoben werden sollten im Iran, haben gar keine Zukunft. Das ist auch vielleicht gut ein Statement in deutscher Gesellschaft. Dankeschön.
Any further questions? I think we have one over there. So you can.
German or not? Sorry. I was curious in terms of the status. Is it both Iran and Pakistan, they don't accept, like they're not accepting them as refugees, or is it because they don't come in with any paperwork? Like, why is it that they don't get any kind of IDs or whatnot in those countries? Like, what's the reason behind it? Like, is it the countries that won't give it to them because they don't like see them as refugees, or is it because they don't come in with any paperwork? And how do they go back and forth? Like, how are they willing to travel?
Es ging um den unterschiedlichen Status von Flüchtlingen, warum das so ist, warum die Reifenbeschränkungen existieren, warum diese Unterscheidung so ein bisschen.
ایران فارسی بگو یه بار دیگه چی گفتی؟ Okay. Okay. Am meisten von diesen Flüchtlingen haben also gar keine Papier mitgebracht, aber das ist so zum Beispiel im Iran, wenn eine afghanische Frau verheiratet ist mit einem Iraner oder auch umgekehrt, dann die Kinder von dieser Familie bekommen auch gar keine Dokumente im Iran. Das heißt, die Regierungen geben gar keine Dokumente, und es gibt auch sehr viel Probleme. Zum Beispiel, ich arbeite mit einem Komitee gegen Todesstrafe, und sehr viele Flüchtlinge aus Afghanistan sind auch betroffen wegen Problemen und werden schon auf die Straße hingerichtet. Also ich denke, das ist schon eine Politik von islamischem Regime, und sehr viele von diesen Kindern haben gar keine Papier. Heiraten zwischen einem Afghaner und einem Iraner wird nicht anerkannt im Iran zum Beispiel. Ich weiß nur Iran, Afghanistan weiß ich nicht. Also Pakistan, ich habe keine Ahnung.
You want to add for the situation in Pakistan?
Yeah, so so that's exactly how we used to escape the country and then move to Pakistan or Iran. And like, what kind of documentation would you take when you're escaping your country? Like, you can't tell your own country that, or whoever it is in charge, like, I'm escaping the country. So you have to leave the country without documentation. And then I think in Iran and Pakistan, they don't have any system of like, you cannot seek asylum and then you cannot get their passport. So you will always remain undocumented and then like a refugee, like until you are there. So.
I had a question for both of you, and perhaps if you could translate. So Fatima, you and I were speaking about this film. You said this is everybody's story. you know? I mean, certainly minus the rap career, but I would, if you're able to, if you could just tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a young woman growing up in Afghanistan, and what your prospects are and what your hopes are, and maybe if you don't mind telling us how you were able to beat that system, and why it is that your story is different than some of the stories we've been seeing today.
Do you want me to translate?
Maybe you could start and then we'll... Sure. Yeah,
I think, yeah, it suits you better, I think, or?
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll go for it. Thank you for your question. So, when I was watching this film, I was just telling to Paula that this is everybody's story. It's because Sunita would be like one of the luckiest ones, that she could escape a forced marriage. She was like about to be sold as a bride, and then she could like pursue her career, and she could just go to the field that she was really desiring for. It's like this is something that happens almost like every day, especially in provinces, that girls are forced to get married to somebody, and the reason would be because they wanna, the family wants to get some money from the groom's family, or they wanna like, there's a problem between two families, so then the only solution they find is, so just give your daughter to our family and then the problem will be solved, especially when it happens when a person, it's like a crime, like somebody killed another member of the family, so then the solution would be like, give your daughter to us or your sister to us, and then the problem will be solved. So it's everybody's story, but she's like really lucky, and I guess she had to go through a lot, and to some extent I don't think that she's lucky even, because I mean, she had to sacrifice something to get something else. She had to sacrifice being seen good by her own family members, or she had to just like escape and leave her family and then go for it. So either way, we have our losses. Like, it's not like you can't just weigh how much we gain and how much we lose when we want to go against something. So I lived in Pakistan for 9 years as an immigrant. After the fall of Taliban, we went back to Afghanistan, and I went to school there. Even in Pakistan, I was in an immigrant school just for Afghans, so I studied in my own language, and the school was just like, yeah, I go to school and that's it. And then we moved to Afghanistan, and I lived there for 6 years, and then I got a scholarship to go to Bangladesh, and I studied in Bangladesh at Asian University for Women for 5 years. I did my bachelor's there, and then after that I went and worked at the Ministry of Counter Narcotics, which is considered one of the ministries that families, they don't allow their daughters to go there because it's a very male-dominated ministry. So when I was working, only 5% of the total employee was just women. And then I really wanted to do my master's, and then I kept on applying, and then on the way I met some people who really believed in me and who wanted to help me. And I guess it's a really long story how I could how I could start my master's in the US. I just don't want to go into details on that. But I think one of the ways that I could deal with a lot of things was my family's support. I have an incredible father who really believes that girls should be educated. I mean, the reason why I'm here today is because of my parents. They believe in me. They don't want to force me to do anything. And also the other reason is, like, she had somebody who was supporting her, like the filmmaker who went with her from Iran to Afghanistan, which is really dangerous. Nobody would do that. An undocumented immigrant, if she goes back to Afghanistan, then she cannot enter Iran. So most of the immigrants are stuck there because if they leave the country once, then they cannot go back. So she took a high risk. So I had people like that in my life. And one of the woman that I really want to name her is Claire Rosenfield, who really believed in me. She supported me while I was in undergrad, and she is supporting me right now. And Paula and all different people that I know in my life, they are like, I could not do anything alone. So I think it's really important to have support.
Also ich möchte auch hier erklären, jede Frau aus diesen Ländern, Iran, Afghanistan, Saudi-Arabien und Pakistan, hat eine Lebensgeschichte. Jeder von uns kann schon erklären, als Kind haben wir gehört, unser Körper ist irgendwie nicht normal, schmutzig. Sexualität war ein Tabuthema und ich denke, Millionen Frauen sind betroffen. Nicht nur von FGM, sondern auch psychisch. Wir sind betroffen von einer Kultur, von einer Tradition, die Frau nicht als Mensch anerkannt, und Sexualität ist total ein Tabuthema. Meine aber Lebensgeschichte ist schon, Vormittag auch habe ich gesagt, sehr viel verbunden mit Machtübernahme im Iran von einer islamischen Bewegung. Ich war Medizinstudentin und ich durfte nicht weiter studieren, weil ich habe nicht Kopftuch getragen. Dann von meiner Familie, mehrere Menschen wurden schon hingerichtet. Und dann geflüchtet bin ich. Und ich habe schon immer wieder gesehen, Kopftuchzwangs, Todesstrafe, Steinigung und Scharia ist schon ein Gesetz dort. Und deswegen, das war sehr wichtig, gegenkämpfen. Und ich freue mich, wir haben zum Beispiel im Iran sehr große Kampagne gegen Steinigung und sehr viele Frauen im Iran haben mitgemacht. Aber weltweit 2010 war eine große Kampagne für Sakineh Mohammadi Ashtiani und im Iran ist de facto abgeschafft. Ich möchte schon sagen, also Protest, auf die Straße gehen, reden über diese Problematik, und Film und Kunst hilft sehr viel und ist auch sehr effektiv. Sonita ist jetzt sehr bekannt bei iranischen jungen Menschen und auch Afghanen. Und ich denke, diese Veranstaltung ist ein Solidaritätszeichen zwischen Menschen im Iran und Menschen in Afghanistan gegen Machthaber und auch gegen diese chauvinistische oder Anti-Flüchtlinge-Politik im Iran gegen Afghanen. Ich freue mich, dass wir beide hier sind und ein Signal senden. Wir sind zusammen, wir Frauen aus dem Iran und aus Afghanistan. Dankeschön.
We're also very happy to have you here, and thank you very much, Fatima. Thank you very much, Mina. And yeah, we have a short break now for 10 minutes, I think, and then we continue with the next movie.
Hello? Yeah, for the police chief, because there's a man beating his daughter with I think a hammer, I'm not sure.
No, it's a male with a hammer chasing his daughter, is that right?
Yeah.
How do you know it's his daughter?
Some girl shouting at the police and from the police because she wants to get married up and she doesn't want to get married.
Right.
That's why they're chasing her.
Age approximately what change? What?
I was teaching you 9. Yeah,
So that would be about 14, 15.
Yeah.
8,000 people in the UK are threatened with a forced marriage each year.
For me, forced marriage is very much a cultural thing. It's not a religious thing. You're using the victim as a piece of property.
For the victims, it's not just their freedom, but sometimes even their lives that are on the line.
Let me tell you now that this is about homicide prevention.
Forcing someone into marriage is now a criminal offence.
We want girls to know that they'll be taken seriously, they'll be believed.
We spent a year with Greater Manchester Police, going behind doors normally firmly shut to a world difficult to investigate and never before captured on camera.
She'd be totally disowned. That's my concern for her now, that she's got nobody.
Yesterday evening, we get a phone call reporting that a male is chasing a young Asian female down the street with a hammer. The young girl is heard to shout that her father was trying to marry her off. The girl is only 16 years old and she's been taken into police protection, and her father was arrested under the new legislation regarding forced marriage. Hi, it's about the incident that you reported last night to the police.
Yeah.
I was hoping that I could get a statement from you today.
Yeah, you can.
Am I okay to come to your home address?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go and see this lady now. She's potentially our most viable witness. So I'll go and get a statement from her.
The girl who was being chased by her dad with a hammer last night has been taken to a refuge. This is the very first case Manchester Police are investigating under the new forced marriage law.
A lot of people will say, oh yeah, I'll give a statement to the police, but they don't realise that that actually means that you're willing to attend court and give evidence. And once they realise that, they panic then because they don't want to go to court, and then they won't give a statement. An Asian community can be very close-knit, which, you know, can be a really good thing. You're talking about other crime, but for family matters, they do tend to like to deal with it themselves. So that's sometimes what we're up against.
Forced marriage is not just restricted to the South Asian communities, but they do dominate the Manchester Police caseload.
Predominantly forced marriages take place because your parents want to get you involved in a relationship with someone they think is suitable. It has to be someone they like, someone they think's wealthy maybe, someone they think's from the right background, from the right caste. So they will force you into that marriage because they feel it's the right thing to do. And the other reasons it could be is because they've been betrothed to some individual, i.e. a cousin, from many, many years ago, from birth, that they have to marry. And to break that promise between your family is a huge honour issue. So you've broken a promise, you've said you're going to allow me to marry your daughter or your son, and you can't change that.
But as awareness of the new law spreads, more young people in fear of their lives are calling the police. Cries for help come in from all over Greater Manchester. In the north of the city, another young woman is fleeing from her father.
I came home late from swimming and my dad goes, "Where have you been? Have you been with that guy?" And then he started to punch me and kick me. He wanted to kill me. He goes, "I want to get the knife out and stab you." Then he asked me, "Where's your car keys and your phone?" I go, "They're in the bedroom." So he runs to my room to get my stuff, whereas I run to the bathroom and lock myself in. He went to sleep, I went to the attic where I sleep, and I locked the door and I went to bed. And it got to about 7 o'clock in the morning. He went to work and I packed a little bag up and I left the house. He wants me to get married to his nephew in Pakistan so he can come to England and have a better life. This kid, he's always had this dream of coming to England because that's what's been put in his head since he was little. He's not going to come because I'm not marrying him.
Roxana is in her mid-20s. The police have found her a place in a refuge overnight.
I know if I go back, the first thing he'll do is beat me up. If they make me marry this man I don't want to marry, I'm going to have an unhappy life. There's no point why waste my life and his life, because he has the right to live a normal life too with a woman who actually loves him. The main thing is he just wants me to get married in Pakistan. That's the bottom line.
Roxana has a British Asian boyfriend, but neither family approves of the match.
She is frightened of her father if she goes back. She believes that he will force her to go to Pakistan, where she will be forced to marry her cousin. When her father said he was going to kill her, she was very frightened, and she does believe that he was going to get a knife and he would have stabbed her. She will not attend court and not give any evidence against her father. I do not want my father arresting for hitting me.
Even though Roxana refuses to give evidence, threatening to kill is such a serious crime that the police arrest her father and interview him under caution.
When you've been in your bedroom and you've said to her, "Where the fuck have you been? I know you have been with him." Is that true?
No. Because I feel shame to talk like this, my daughter.
Mm-hmm. And then she said that you've slapped her and you've punched her.
No.
And she's saying that she's used, obviously the video cameras can see my actions, but she's saying she's put her arms up in front of her head because she thinks that you're going to hit her. And she said,
when I shout at her, right. I'm not happy this time.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, she thinks, that because when I shout, thinks, he's going to hit me. Daughter is a daughter, I love her. You can't hit. It's not easy to hit a daughter. Son, you can hit him. But daughter, father can't hit daughters.
Okay.
So you can hit your wife, you can hit your sons. But daughters, I don't know why we can't. What's our weakness? Grandchildren and daughters, you can't hit them.
Okay.
So you're saying in this country that you can't hit anybody?
The night she says I beat him up, honestly, I did not beat him up because I told her, listen, I'm not hitting you this time. I'm just telling you, but I won't be happy if you do the same thing again.
She then describes you saying to your wife, "Go and get the knife, I'm going to kill her."
No.
You're not said that?
Like that. Nothing like that.
Okay. Yeah. So you're saying you haven't said that?
No.
Have you said anything like that?
No.
No.
Without a complaint from Roxana and with her father denying all allegations, the police are struggling to press charges.
This is the police here. I need to know where you are. Where are we?
Getting convictions is difficult. The main reason for this, obviously, is our victims don't want to prosecute. Going to the police and making a complaint about your family is also very dishonourable. So there's all sorts of issues for them to think about. Don't want mum and dad to get arrested. What's going to happen if I do? What are the repercussions going to be? So a lot of them will come to us saying, just protect me, look after me, make sure nothing happens to me.
Roxana wants the police to help her retrieve her possessions from the family home. She feels it's too dangerous to go there alone.
So clothes from your room, iPhone charger. Do you have any reason to believe that they're going to withhold any of these?
No.
You're awkward about it, right? Fair enough. Every address has a history, and any individuals or offenders will be linked to an address. So that address comes up. So straight away on the brother, he's known as being violent, a stalker and a domestic abuse perpetrator. So 8 offences of violence, supplying heroin, damage, witness intimidation.
She's made a huge decision to come away from her family, cut all her ties off. She's cut a very deep wound within the father's cultural values. Because essentially within Asian families, the power players are your parents.
Yeah.
So if the dad finds out that his children are not listening to him and they're having contact, you know, what could the effect be of that? That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
he's been let down because he's obviously give his word to somebody else. I don't know if it's a family member back home.
Yeah.
But she'd be totally disowned, and that's my concern for her now, that she's got nobody, really. It really is sad, but that's the future for her, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it's a massive step.
It's a massive step.
But it's got to be taken.
You said that you haven't punched and slapped her?
No.
No?
No.
You haven't threatened to kill her?
No.
Okay. And
he denied any assault, basically said he approached her about getting home from work late. He was a bit annoyed because she didn't tell parents where she was, and he then, as a punishment, took a mobile phone off her and a laptop off her until further notice, basically. Her mother wouldn't give any information to the police and wouldn't give a statement. They also contacted her boyfriend, who lives in another area, in relation to problems she's been getting from father, and he wouldn't supply any information or give a statement either.
With no one willing to give evidence, the police have to release Roxana's dad without charge. Not knowing if she'll have to face her father again, she's now going home under police protection. This may be the last time she ever sees her family.
Just say one.
Yeah.
Right, let's just have a seat.
British-born Roxana says her father has threatened to kill her. She fears he will force her to marry her cousin in Pakistan, but she wants to marry her British boyfriend.
I'm Pakistani, so I understand Pakistani culture. A woman is supposed to stay at home and cook and clean. If they do work, that's fine, but they still have to go to Pakistan to get married, or marry who their parents want them to marry, and if they don't, their parents don't like it. But the parents do need to realise at the end of the day, your child is grown up and you should allow them to make their own choices.
Are you sure you don't want to come into the house?
No, thank you.
Right, is there anything you want to pass on to your family?
No, I'm alright.
Okay, I'll see you shortly.
Just to outline, you know, we said before, this could be your last opportunity to go to your family house. If you want to see your mum, this could be your last time you could see her because of your father's situation.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
Right, have you spoken to your father-in-law?
Roxana's sister-in-law arrives with permission from Roxana's father to let the police in.
So, we've been asked to come and collect clothes from her room.
Yes, you can.
There's nobody else in the house.
No,
You
no.
might have to sort of quick look at this.
Yes, you can. No one's in.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, because
It's locked.
With no other family members present, Roxana comes into the house herself.
I'll hold the bags and put the stuff in. That's all right.
You can never have enough clothes, right? She goes to me at the end, you should have come to me instead of going to the police. My dad was arrested because he'd been hitting me and stuff. I didn't want him to be arrested, but the police said because I'd reported it, it's their job, they have to investigate it. I just don't want him to suffer. I don't want him to go to jail or anything. End of the day, he's still my dad, innit?
I had to ring the father to make sure there was somebody at the address. Going into the property, every single door was locked from outside with some sort of a bolt. He's obviously keeping control of the whole house. There's nobody in the address. It just tells me that he doesn't want anybody to come into his house or be there when he's not there.
Just very briefly, Aki's going to follow you out just for the first half a mile, make sure there's nothing.
I'm just going to go to my friends, that's where I'm staying now.
No, I just want to make sure nobody's following you. Yeah?
The police escort, yay!
Alright, okay.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Take care.
If she would have stayed there and they would have taken her by force abroad, we would never know that she's married at all. But it's down to her courage really at the end of the day to come forward and say, look, this is what's happening and we need more people to come forward and say this. But it doesn't happen, it just doesn't.
To encourage more young women and men to find the strength to stand up to their parents and refuse a forced marriage, Jaswinda Sangera set up the charity Karma Nirvana.
Like I say, if you come out to the office, have a look at the call handling.
She's been campaigning for a law against forced marriage for 10 years.
I was 14 years old when I came home from school one day. My mother sat me down, she presented me with the photograph of the man I was to learn I was promised to from the age of 8. I either came home and married who they said, or from this day forward, I was now dead in their eyes forever, because I had shamed my family by saying no to marrying this man.
Crimes and forced marriages, that's due to be announced by the Chief Inspector of Constabulary.
For all the raft of offences, what people argue is that we have enough offences on our statute books without having to worry about a specific criminal offence. So we have things like kidnap, rape, abduction, psychological abuse, physical abuse, and that should be enough to tackle forced marriage. Well, in fact, we've made the case that it's not, because a specific law actually, as somebody who is a survivor of a forced marriage, enables me to own it as a crime, to be able to say to my family, you can't do this to me, it's against the law in Britain.
Okay everybody, thanks for attending this meeting today. This meeting is in relation to 2 females that were brought to the police station yesterday. Both females made disclosures that they're fleeing forced marriage issues and were about to be or have been forced into marriage by family members. Offences have been disclosed, despite the fact at the moment they're not wishing to assist the police. My stance is that we will take action in relation to those offences and arrests of family members will be made.
20-year-old girls, Aisha and Halima, are cousins. They were picked up by a patrol car last night and brought to the police station. They're now in a refuge.
A week ago there was an engagement party. She's expressed to her families that she doesn't want to go through with this, and Dad has threatened to kill her, has said, if you don't go through with this, I will kill you. And specifically he said, I'm not like other pet fathers, I will see this through no matter what police involvement you have.
We have put a genogram together and we believe that they're all connected by the grandmother.
The social workers devised a family tree for us and it was quite shocking once it was laid out in front of us. What's most concerning is that the majority of these are children, male and female, ranging from 1 year old up to 19 years old, not including our lady that lived there. So all these children need protecting.
This is the largest number of children in one family at risk of forced marriage that the Manchester police have ever come across. DI Tanya Kitchen believes 15 young people may be at risk. The first line of defence is to seek a forced marriage protection order for each child.
You can't intimidate, harass, you can't take your child out of the country, you can't take your child to another city even. You will hand over your passports, which will stop you from being able to travel out of the country, and we can put any restriction that we feel fit on that order in order to protect that individual from having a forced marriage.
Tanya is concerned that so many children may be at risk in two households. She organises simultaneous arrests at both addresses across Manchester. One of the cousins, Aisha, has just had her engagement party. DS John Chatterton's team are investigating the allegation that her father threatened to kill her.
So the intentions this morning are to attend the address with a warrant and arrest both mother and father on suspicion of threats to kill.
10 miles away, Tanya's team are investigating Halima's parents. If they married her off 2 years ago, then they broke the terms of the forced marriage protection order.
Ideally, what we want is details of everybody in that address and dates of birth. It links into a forced marriage protection order that we're taking out for all children in that address.
As each team is dispatched for the arrests, Aisha claims that her parents are planning to fly to Pakistan this morning.
The girl didn't realise that it was going to be an engagement party. Then we've got the flight tickets if we can find them to corroborate the fact that then she was flying out.
With both teams striking simultaneously, John has to get to Aisha's parents before they try to leave the country.
It's the police. Is it? Yeah. Can we just come in,
Two
please?
cousins, Aisha and Halima, have fled from their families in the middle of the night, seeking police protection.
Is there anybody else in the address?
Police from the Public Protection Team are simultaneously arresting their parents for forced marriage offences in two locations across Manchester.
Okay. I can get a push-to interpreter on the phone. Yes? Can you just tell her that she's under arrest for a breach of a forced marriage protection order?
Halima's parents are being arrested for forcing her into a marriage 2 years ago. Aisha's parents are flying out to Pakistan this morning. She says they've threatened to kill her if she's not on the plane.
I'd just like to make you aware that I'm just going to both arrest you on suspicion of threats to kill. Huh? Okay. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you're not mentioning questions, something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Okay. So is there anything you need to bring with you?
He's got Pakistan.
Right, okay, well you need to come down to the police station this morning, alright? Yes, and we'll see how that develops later on. Alright, what time's the flight?
1:20.
Okay. Well listen, we'll discuss that later on. What I suggest you do now is not say anything else to me. Alright, you're under caution. Okay.
A forced marriage protection order was placed on Halima 5 years ago, so her parents should not have taken her out of the country. But they managed to get her a different passport and got her through border control unchallenged. Aisha's parents are being arrested because she says they've threatened to kill her if she doesn't go through with the planned marriage in Pakistan.
They need to sign there, first of all, to say that you've got the notice to read there that explains what your legal rights are.
DS Janji Garrod knows it's not just family honour which lies behind forced marriage.
In terms of money, we can't be naive about it. Yes, we do know a lot of people potentially are forced into marriage so they can come into this country to keep the land within the community. Because if you see with a lot of the forced marriages, they are also between cousins and family members to keep that land, to keep that money. So land, honour, gold, they all come into play somewhere along the line.
As the two sets of parents are booked into police stations across the city, the Public Protection Team only have a warrant to search Aisha's house. They're using the new law to look for any evidence that could back up the fact that a marriage was planned.
We're just looking at any text messages in relation to threats, any correspondence in relation to the flights, why she's going over there, and anything that happened before it was even brought to the police attention, basically, that would assist us with it.
Whilst the team search the house, one officer learns from Aisha's sister that Aisha made a solemn promise to her father last week.
She's been speaking to her sister, and her parents have made swear on the Quran, which means that she puts a full hand on the Quran and said that she's going to go ahead with the marriage, and that's when the money starts to be exchanged with regards to the families. So that's why her father was very upset when she left the address 4 days after the actual hen party.
This looks like it's from the Mendy celebration, which is like their version of the hen party, I'm informed. So she would have worn this. But it's great evidence in respect to the fact that there's a party happened as a result of the fact that there was going to be a wedding. So, you know, it's things like that we need to seize, and we need to be asking them questions on interview about what these things are for. But a very special couple on your wedding day. Well, no reference to husband's name yet whatsoever. At this moment in time, she's got nobody else to support them other than ourselves and people that she's never met before. You know, so it's very, very difficult, isn't it? You can see why they're torn to come back. Because I'm assuming it's a very lonely place.
Neither of the two victims, Aisha and Halima, want to give the police a statement. The custody clock is ticking. Aisha's parents, who've been arrested for threatening to kill her, can be held for 24 hours while the police try to gather enough evidence to charge.
We've been sent some pictures from the victim, which shows her and her parents, along with other family members, a very traditional engagement party.
The evidence that we've got, we know that they were going to travel away today because we've got the tickets. We know that there's been a celebration because we've got the cards, the gifts, the dresses, the photographs. So we know that they were planning the wedding as such. We've got a verbal account from our victim to say that as far as she's concerned, she was being forced into that marriage. She'd been threatened that if she doesn't, she will be killed. However, that victim hasn't physically put pen to paper. So it depends on what they say in custody.
And you was also, when I came to your cell, you was further arrested, what we refer to as an attempt forced marriage, because ultimately what she's saying to the police is that she doesn't want to enter into an arranged marriage. It's up to her if she wants to get married or not, you know, we can't do anything.
Would you force her to enter into a marriage?
No comment.
Would you force her to enter into a marriage with anyone?
No comment.
What would happen to you if she doesn't enter into this marriage?
No comment.
It's quite sad, really. It's quite subtle how they're forced into it. It's almost like a blackmail, enticing you back. There's lies, and there's a gradual wearing you down. Being nice to you, then being horrible, then being nice to you again, being horrible. And it really does get into emotional abuse.
Here we go.
Very little physical force needs to be used to do this. And she said, I got to the point that I had to go along with it. They made me. I had to. They would talk about it incessantly. Really, that was the forcing element. And she said when I went through with it, I expected some kind of reward for doing what they wanted me to do, but I didn't get that. I didn't get anything. And really with forced marriages, sometimes very little force and threats need to be used. Gradually just wears you down and grinds you down, that really you're left with no other option. You have to go through with it, and that's what's happened, I think, in these cases.
So we now have with us Fiona Carr from UK. Nice. Hi. Welcome. From NGO Girls Not Brides, an NGO in the UK which battles against forced and child marriages, and Jasminda's son, who is also engaged in this battle. We're very pleased to have you here, and please could you introduce yourself and your work to our audience?
Yes, my name's Fiona Carr, which is the global partnership to end child marriage around the world. We were set up about 5 years ago now, and we're made up of about 700 NGOs, 700 civil society NGOs, and working in 86 countries.
I'm Jordan Sangiera. I'm documenting this film. She set up Carmen of Honor in 1993. She set up Carmen of Honor in 1993, so it'll be its 25th anniversary in 2 years' time. Carmen of Honor was set up in order to give a voice to the women and men who are going through forced marriages, non-abuse violence, to give them the informed support and service that they need to help have someone there with them and get out of that situation. I volunteered for Carmen of Honor over the years, and I've grown up around these issues, so yeah.
From your experience, would you say how prevalent is this issue in the UK or in other European countries? Do you have any experience about this in other European countries, also in Germany maybe?
I can't say in terms of numbers, in terms of Germany or Holland or other countries. In terms of the UK, there's about 8,000 forced marriages each year. The unit that you just saw, that was set up in 2005, and they deal with about 1,500 cases each year. So I think in terms of numbers, that's about 350 calls each month to the hotline. And they do tremendous work. As you've seen there, it's very difficult for the girls. They've shown tremendous courage in standing up and saying that this is not right, and it's my right to choose if, when and whom I marry. And in terms of the police as well, they have a very, very difficult job in terms of enforcing the law.
You just mentioned that the police and the officials have a very difficult job. What would you say? How well trained are officials to deal with these issues? And what do you do? How do you train them? How do you yeah.
Well, in terms of training, the unit goes through extensive training, and they work with NGOs like Carmen Nirvana to understand the cultural issues and to understand why forced marriage takes place. And there's lots of different drivers. As we've seen through a number of films today, in terms of early and forced marriage, you know, sometimes it's poverty, sometimes it's tradition, sometimes really girls are married just because they're girls, and it's about gender inequality as well. So they do get a lot of training, and it's very important that they work very much with local communities.
You mentioned in the beginning that it's forced marriage, that it's not only affects girls but also affects boys. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Forced marriage, it's not restricted to genders. It happens to both sexes, both male and female. It's more about the sense of power within the family and what they get from it, from family to family, as they spoke about money or whatever it may be. It happens to men and women. Following the airing of that film that you just saw, within an hour there were 4 men who called the helpline at Carmen of Honor, and they were supported thanks to that film. So it's just raising the awareness and getting men and women to speak up about it so that they know that they've got someone to go to.
Right, thank you. So, are there any more questions in the audience? Over there.
It's not working. No?
Oh,
No?
it's working, I think.
Well, I can speak loud.
Okay.
I wonder, what we have seen right now, it's like what this police is doing is somehow trying to solve the consequences of what is a cultural problem. So I wonder, which are the policies to make sure that these things are not going to happen again? So in which way it's possible to educate these people to start to use respect, the will of young women and men who are forced into marriages or are forced to have a female circumcision, well, the female cut mutilation. Yeah, how is it? Mutilation, yeah. How is it possible to educate these cultures in order to get a little bit more open-minded, and mostly towards human rights? What is it possible to do?
So you've got to come at it holistically, so from lots of different angles, and this was touched on earlier. So you've got to look at it at an international level and make sure that there's the UN and other international laws are involved, and human rights laws. You've got to look at it nationally, so governments themselves have to do something, and you've got to look at it locally. And then come at it from an angle of girls' empowerment. The more that girls know about their own rights and what's wrong and what's right is important. You've got to mobilize families and communities, and you've got to have legal frameworks and policies. So you can't, there's just not one solution, there's multiple solutions.
You want to add something?
From Carmen and Ivana's perspective, we go into schools and try and start at the grassroots level so that men and women know their rights, and we try and teach them that it's going on and understand that it's an injustice. You're depriving men and women of their basic rights to live their lives and make their own decisions.
Any more questions, remarks?
Yeah. When my mother was 16 years old, and one day my mother's father came to her and he told, "You are now married." How? This is your husband's name, you are now married. And my mother replied, "How?" And he told that, "I make a signature on behalf of you." So is it legal? Is it possible by Islamic law, Islamic rules, that my mother's father make a signature and she's married?
Well, what I would say is that no major religion, whether that's Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Judaism, says that a child or a girl should be forced into marriage. And as I say, it's important to look at different legal situations within countries and make sure that there are legal frameworks and policies that protect girls and any child from getting married under the age of 18. So it's a human rights abuse and it's a child abuse.
Thank you.
Are they threatened if they don't go through the marriage the same way as women are? Like, is their lives in danger, or what's the repercussions for men who, if they refuse to go through the marriage?
Men have the same experiences with domestic violence as women do. There's been numerous cases of honour killings when men have been abused and their lives have been taken from them because they've shamed the family in such a way. It's the exact same sort of pressure exerted on a man as it is a woman, as it's an extremely cultural thing, regardless of the gender.
Oh wait, now I have two questions. So, if the pressure is the same, but the consequences aren't, is that correct?
No, the consequences can be the same in both cases. There's cases of men being killed in the name of honour as well as women.
And so my other, I don't know, does this work? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I don't necessarily have a question. I think it was just more of a statement to kind of follow up. Well, no, actually it is a question. So, sorry, I had a couple. I needed it. It's been a tough day, y'all. So, in looking at the issue about forced marriages and sort of what is happening, I mean, first of all, I guess my statement would be that I think that it comes more from education and empowering people, hitting them when they're young. That's the thing. When you have people that are immigrating to your country, or other than giving them hate and separatism, it's a matter of being able to educate them that they can, in fact, be free. So I guess that would be one thing. But then the other thing is, how do you go about educating people when this isn't something that is just strictly limited to Muslim or Sikh or Islamic relations. I mean, this is in Virginia just last year is when they finally took it off the books to where you had to be of legal age in order to get married. And that's what we call, we're supposed to be civilized, but we're not in the US. So, I mean, this is something that is happening all over the place. So how do we sort of start this dialogue to make sure that it is in fact inclusive of everyone, other than sort of signaling out different cultures and religions? I think that once we take that separatism out of it, that maybe we might do better with the conversation.
I think the thing is that you're absolutely right in terms of education and raising awareness. And what I would say is that's got to start really, really early. It's got to start in schools, because these units, as somebody said, they're dealing with the outcome, as it were. But if you're starting to teach children in schools, and I think very much we need to do this in Britain, everybody across the board, not just certain schools or certain parts of the country, across the board, if you start talking about rights and what's wrong and what's right in terms of people's rights, and say this is wrong, this is absolutely wrong. It's an individual's choice to decide, as I said earlier, if I want to get married, and if I do want to get married, who do I want to marry and when do I want to marry them? And if you start with children and that becomes the norm and the conversation is very broad and very, very open, then I think you will start to see change, because it's when we are silent, when there are taboo subjects that people don't like to talk about, that's where you get abuses happening. Whereas if people are very open and it's talked about from the very beginning, then that becomes the norm, and people say, no, this is wrong what you're trying to do to me. Like those girls, I mean, that's incredibly brave to stand up and go against their families, against their communities, against their friends, and say, this is not what I choose for myself, and it's about choice.
How much intervention is taking place at an early age, like you mentioned, in schools? Do you know how much partnership there is with Department of Education? Are these conversations taking place that people know, young men and children at 10, 11, 12, and don't have to wait until they're 25 to realise?
I would say across the world, broadly, this conversation is only just beginning. The movement for child marriage really only started 5 years ago, so in many respects we're at the early stages. But we've started raising awareness, and the next stage very much is taking action. So I would absolutely, in terms of Girls Not Brides, advocate that we start having these conversations with education chiefs across the board, both in the UK and in other countries. And one of the other things that we were doing, in fact, a couple of days ago, our chief executive and our board chair, Princess Mabel Van Orange, were in Malawi talking with education ministries, with health ministries, with gender ministries, but they were doing that in conjunction with the head of UNAIDS, the head of the Global Partnership Towards Education. And this is because tackling child marriage, you've got to have an integrated approach. Child brides are much more likely to be the victims of violence. They're much more likely to be susceptible to HIV. They're much more likely to have a distorted view of what's right and what's wrong. In some studies, they found that child brides thought it was much more acceptable to be hit by their husbands than girls that got married later. So you have all these distorted views and interlinked areas, and you've got to tackle them holistically. You can't just tackle education or HIV or child marriage. You've got to tackle it together and have this very integrated approach.
So, time for one more question.
I was just curious, how would you approach people who are educated and still do this? Because like I know, I understand how education plays a big role, but to some extent it's almost like an excuse in a way, because I don't feel like education necessarily would make someone not really know what's wrong and right. Like this, there's very uneducated people who know and have a sense. So I was just curious, like when education isn't the reason, like how would you approach something like this?
I think in many respects you approach it from multiple angles, but you start opening up the conversation, you start exposing them to films and to conversations like we've been having today. And the more you do that, the more you will start to change mindsets. It won't happen overnight. We've got a long, long way to go, but it's about that openness and not just accepting their point of view and thinking, well, I can't change that. The more that we have these conversations, particularly with the unconverted, the more that you will change perceptions. Because that's, as one of our big champions, Gracia Michel, says, you know, traditions are made by people, they can be changed by people, you know, and they're not set in stone. And things that we did years ago that we now take for granted, and traditions that we now have, we didn't have them years ago. Things move on and the conversation moves on. And so we've just got to expose more and more people, use social media, use events like this to have those conversations, and gradually we will change mindsets.
I think the first step was making sure that they understand that forced marriage protection orders can be put into place, and they understand that what they're doing is a criminal offence, giving it more of a humane angle so that they realise that they are breaching people's human rights. And it's a big disrespect, a massive disrespect to these men and women, because they feel as though they own them. Yes, they brought them into this world, but that doesn't mean that they own them.
All right. Thank you very much to both of you for being here and sharing your thoughts with us. And okay, I think we have one last break, 10 minutes, and then we're gonna go for the final movies. Hassan Fasili, unfortunately, he fled Afghanistan and he's currently stuck in a refugee camp in Serbia. We tried everything to bring him here, but without any success. But I do think we have Mr. Nazeri here today. Is he in the room? There you are. Thank you. Have a seat, please. Mr. Nazeri is a filmmaker. Is a filmmaker himself, and you also taught Mr. Fasili the art of filmmaking. So you know him quite well. Could you please introduce yourself?
Myself. Okay. Good evening. Unfortunately, science is I've been in Deutschland. My English is fast destroyed, but I try. Yeah. Yesterday, the friend had told me I have to talk here about the film on Fasili. Actually, not only Hassan Fasili, but family Fasili. You see on the titles, Fasili, Familia Fasili, they are a family filmmaker. But yeah, I thought, what can I say? But I asked from another friend, she can talk with you, but just a few seconds, please. I have one surprise. And 1, 2, 3. Come on, please.
Guten Tag, ich heiße Nargis, ich komme aus Afghanistan. Ich bin 9. سلام من نرگس هستم. من خیلی آرزو داشتم که در اون فستیوال باشم و نداشتم.
گریه نکن. خنده کن. خوشحال باشم الان فیلم تو رو ببینم. خنده کن. خوشحال باش.
من خیلی آرزو داشتم در یک فستیوال باشم و فیلم خود نمیگیرم. عالم اما نظر تشکر که شما همه ما رو ترجمه میکنید. خیلی دارم فیلم من جایزه بگیرم. من که در یک فیلم همون بازی کرده بودم. فیلم همون جایزه گرفت. ما که در تاجیکستان بودیم ما یک اتاق گرفته بودیم اونجا کل مردم می آمدن اونجا پدرم فیلم زیاد میداد. در اونجا که فیلم زیاد میداد همون آمد جایزه شو خوب نشان داد. ما عکس گرفتیم و جایزه شو گرفت بالا نشان داد. جایزه اطلاعی بود. من دوست دارم فیلم ما هم جایزه بگیره.
نه دوستم شادی جشنواره نباشه، جایزه‌ای نباشه. حالا مردم آمدن ببینن، تو برای مردم چی حرف داری؟ خوشحالی که مردم آمدن ببینن.
تشکر خیلی شما رو دوست دارم. ما میخوایم مردم دوست دارم. ماما ناصر رو دوست دارم.
I will tell. Yeah, I will tell. It's short.
من شما رو خیلی دوست دارم. تشکر که آمدین فیلم ما رو بخوایم ببینید.
Yeah, that was all. I think you understood all. She was Nargis, the actress from last film, the big daughter from Familie Fasili. And she said to all audience hello, and she said thanks. You see the film, and she couldn't see to control. Yeah, And yeah, she cried, and then she said, yeah, we are all filmmakers, but our people, they don't think about us, they don't think good. The people thinks while we are filmmakers, that maybe they are not good people. But Narges said, yeah, thank you. Also, she said from me, thank you to translate. She's word to you. Yeah, familia Fazili at the moment, our friend said they are in Serbia in one refugee camp. But this festival tried to bring this family here with you, but yeah, it's not possible. Yeah, but at this time, I got one question: why it's not possible? Yeah, where is the where is the UNHCR? Where is the IOM? What will then this reporter on a border? Yeah, they say, yeah, we are working for the media, we are helping in all around the world about the refugee, but yeah, they cannot help this familia. Yeah, I think that's all Narges said. I think it's enough. What can I say more? Maybe you have some question that I can tell you something more, but I can't talk too much, but I think maybe it's not enough time.
Mind if I join you?
Please.
Can I join? Okay. I just, oh, thanks. I don't need more applause. I just wanted to join both of you as we're starting to wrap up. And I just wanted to thank you very much for joining us today. And as I'm sure you all heard, we thought to end the film festival with the films of Hassan Fazili, who has had to flee his home because of his films and because of his art. And we thought it would be a very poignant and important way to wrap up the film festival. A man who is literally risking his life to tell women's stories and who has suffered greatly for it, has had to leave his home, and who is now seeking status in Europe. So we're very grateful that his friend could be here with us today. I think that it gives a human face, and that's what I love about film, and that's what I'm sure all of you love about film, as I saw the tears flowing freely today, is that film gives us a window into different people's worlds. We can hear a headline or listen to something on the news, but what film does is it shows us an actual little girl, an actual woman's story, an actual man's fight or plight, and that's what film does. It is the place and the space that brings us all together. So I just wanted to thank you again very much, and thank all of you here for joining us at the Censored Women's Film Festival. We are just getting started in the sense that I hope you'll see a lot more of us in March in Brooklyn, and then please feel free to invite us back to Germany or bring us to other places and spaces. It's so essential that this isn't the place where these stories end. Also, my last appeal to please buy our bags and our swag and our merchandise outside. And I can't end the evening without thanking again profusely the entire team at BILD, Antia Shipman especially for having the vision to put this together, and the entire team at Honor Diaries. So thank you all so very much for a beautiful day, and please don't let these voices and stories end here. Please continue to keep the message going loud and strong. Thank you.
Free to have a few drinks still at the bar. Feel free to connect with all the filmmakers that are still here in the room and activists that are here in the room. So I hope you enjoy the evening. Thank you very much for coming here.